So, thank you, Dr. Evans, for reading my very long introduction. I appreciate it. I'll tell you more about the children's books later. They're not as important as what I'm talking about today. Democracy on the Down Ballot, a guide to political platforms and voting records for the Tennessee General Assembly and beyond. How many of you guys know who you are voting for in the November election? Wonderful. You guys are about par. So, this is what is on our election ballot in Tennessee this upcoming November. As you can see, there are a lot of different offices that are represented. Of course, we are voting for president and vice president. Not only do we have a Republican and a Democratic candidate, you will also see down ballot, there are multiple independents who are running for office, and those include True Independents, Workers' Party, Socialist Workers' Party, the actual Independent Party, and then the Green Party. Those are also candidates who you will see on the Tennessee ballot. These are national candidates. Several of them have already suspended their campaigns, but because of the way that the electoral process works, you do still have the opportunity of casting your vote for them if that is how you choose to. We do have Tennessee state races that are happening this year. The Tennessee State House of Representatives is a 2-year appointment system, meaning that every 2 years you will be responsible for electing a new member of the House of Representatives. In the Tennessee State Senate, we have a 6-year term, and the even-numbered districts 2 through 32 are being elected this year. Now, as you can see, there are a lot of other positions that are represented here, and we are actually down here. So if you are one of the students that Dr. Evans has helped to become registered in Rutherford County, you are going to be electing the U.S. House of Representatives District 4. You are either voting to keep Representative Scott Desjardins or confirm one of the other 3 people on this ballot. This is similarly what it looks like. This is the Murfreesboro election. This is what it's going to look like in Rutherford County. This is coming from the Rutherford County Election Commission. This was updated over the weekend, so you now finally have access to see what your sample ballot will look like. Does anybody have any questions about what a sample ballot looks like or what you are going to be voting for this November? Everybody said that they had an idea of who they were voting for. Does that possibly include people down ballot? Yes? No? Maybe? So. Alright, so voting down ballot is when you choose to vote for somebody who is not on that main presidential ticket. That is the one that you are seeing up there. That's who you were expecting. As you can see, it's not just Republican and Democrat. There are several different others. There are 5 additional people who are running on tickets under independent parties. For the rest of these ballots, the rest of the slots on these ballots, that is what is considered a down ballot vote. So if you are voting for somebody who is not on a national ticket, or if you are voting for somebody who is not represented well in media, that is considered a down ballot vote. All right. Hold on, I'll go back. So, how many of you in this room have ever had any kind of experience working with the Tennessee General Assembly or simply looking up a piece of legislation passed in the state of Tennessee? A handful of you? All right, we're going to actually teach you today how to do that. The Tennessee General Assembly website is incredibly useful. There's Cameron Sexton. It's incredibly useful for a number of reasons. You can look up information about where you are registered to vote, about who is specifically representing you, about individual pieces of legislation, and schedules and calendars so that you can go and watch in person or streamed live via Zoom. So, I want Cameron Sexton's face to not be right there. So here you can see down at the bottom we do have Senate, House of Representatives, and joint meetings. Today actually happened this morning. The TSSBA board meeting happened. Down here is where you will see any information that is going to be happening throughout the day and on any Senate, House of Representatives, or joint calendars. As you can see, there is nothing on these 2 calendars. That is because we are in a part-time legislative system in the state of Tennessee, and that actually does not start until January. So this January, they will be reconvening in the second half of the 113th General Assembly. We are going to go ahead and look at one of our own senators in Rutherford County. I have met with Senator Shane Reeves a handful of times. I am a former Miss Rutherford County. He and his office are wonderful to talk to. And if you have the opportunity to do so and go ask questions, I highly encourage you to do so. So what this navigation system looks like here, there's kind of a lot of information happening on this page. You can see here, there is a button so that you can email Senator Shane Reeves. He has access to that email account. He likely will not respond to you. His very kind Executive Secretary Hannah will very likely be the one who responds to you, but he is very receptive to having in-office visits. So if any of you have anything interesting that is relevant or pertinent to the state of MTSU, He is one of our senators on this campus, as well as an alumni representative, as you can see here. He is a member of the Blue Raider Athletic Association, so he has a lot of ties to MTSU. There's a lot of personal information that you can actually find out here. His Nashville address is here, and his personal address is not listed, meaning his district address is not listed. This is not common. There are a lot of different ways that you can go in and edit these websites. For whatever reason, he has chosen to delist his address. So, if you want to find out more information about your senator, you can go into the committees tab. So here on the committees tab, you can see that he serves in the Agriculture, Energy, and Natural Resource Committee, the Health and Welfare Committee, and the Commerce and Labor Committees. Some of those make sense. He is involved in pharmaceuticals, he's a pharmacist. Alrighty. Now, if you are interested in the kind of bills that Senator Shane Reeves proposes, there's a tab on every single person's page where you can see what bills they are directly responsible for sponsoring. This is probably bad luck, but we're going to look at Senate Bill 666. So, we're going to go ahead and scroll down, and I want to show you what this page exactly does. Also, P.S., if you have a bike outside, it is raining kind of hard. Okay, so what this page looks like, so just thought you might like. So, as you can see here, there's a lot to see on this page. There is so much that people take for granted on the General Assembly website, and that's mostly because they don't know how to use it. So as you can see here, Senator Shane Reeves is the person who sponsored this bill, and it was co-sponsored once you hit this expansion. It was co-sponsored by Lieutenant Governor of the Senate McNally, Massey, Pody, and Stevens. Every bill that gets sent through the Senate has a counterpart that happens in the House. There are a few more people who are responsible for sponsoring this bill in the House. This website is a little bit confusing because you can find multiple instances of things that are called similar names. So example, you can see here, show caption text. You can see what a brief description of this bill is. It was a companion bill that has to do with healthcare. And you can also see just how long this spent going back and forth between committees. Committees are colloquially known as the place where legislation goes to die. That's for good reason. We'll actually look at a piece of legislation immediately after this, but as you can see, this one was in fact signed by Governor Bill Lee, and it went into effect on May 11th, 2023. So you can find out the information of what committees these bills went to. You can also go find where amendments to these bills were made. So if you want to look at any of these amendments, you can also look at the fiscal memos. These are all certified by the executive director for the Fiscal Review Committee. So you can see there's a lot of information here. Not all of it is necessarily relevant to your research. I promise there is an end goal in us going through this. You can look at video. These are videos of people arguing on behalf of this bill in different committees. So it was 3 times in the Senate Commerce and, 2 times in the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee, and then there was 1 time that it was argued in front of the Senate Finance, Ways and Means Committee. In order for a bill to make it to the floor of the Senate, it has to make it through on 2 separate considerations for the committee that it is assigned to, and this bill appears to have been included in 2 separate committees. You can look up the bill summaries here, in addition to the fiscal summary. The fiscal summary is not technically the same as the fiscal note. Again, a little bit confusing. But here you can see the bill summary. You can read that on your own. This is the Prior Authorization Fairness Act. This is essentially a healthcare bill. If you want to see who voted in favor of the passage of this bill, you can look under the Votes tab. There are reasons that this specific tab is important. When you go to the polls in November, there are going to be people standing outside the 100-yard boundary that say, I am voting for this when I am up at the state General Assembly. You can actually fact check that information. So if you have somebody that you are interested in voting for and they tell you time and time again that they want to vote to protect your blank, you can actually fact check them on that. You can say, well, all of the times that you have been reelected in the past, you didn't vote to protect my blank. And they will stop talking to you. So that's a good thing. That is called democratic discourse. We're going to look at something similar here. Instead of looking up individual legislators, we're actually going to go under the legislation tab. You can look under index if you have the numbers memorized. Nobody has these numbers memorized. So it's better to go under legislation and browse bills by subject. So we're going to go guns a-blazing straight up at the top abortion. So, as you can see, these are the number of bills that were filed in the Tennessee General Assembly in the last legislative session about abortion, about reproductive health care rights. I'm still scrolling. So we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, looking at another party. So as you can see here, we're looking at another piece of legislation. This was sponsored by the opposition side in this case. You can see the caption text here, an act to amend Tennessee Code annotated Title 37, 39, 63, and 68 relative to abortion. This section isn't as long. That's because this bill failed. So, if you're interested in learning more about what this exactly did, as introduced, exempts from the offense of criminal abortion an abortion that is performed or attempted by a licensed physician in a licensed hospital or ambulatory surgical treatment center on a patient who is under 13 years of age. That's what this bill intended to do. It intended to legalize the life-saving care for medical abortion for those under the age of 13. It failed. It had 2 ayes and 5 nays in the House Population Health Subcommittee. So this tells you a little bit about what individuals are voting for and what they're voting against. You can see the people who voted against the passage of this bill. Now, if you have somebody that is trying to get your vote and they are saying, well, I have this reason that I believe this, and I have this justification for what I'm going to do instead. You can pull up a website like the Tennessee General Assembly website, and you can say, hey, I have this bill and I was wondering what your perspective for an alternative piece of legislation was. This is really important because a lot of times what candidates will do is they will use big buzz topic words. There's a reason I chose the abortion one right up at the top. They will choose these buzzwords that lead you to believe that they are voting for something similar to what your ideology is. That is often not the case. To say that you are in favor or against something and then continue to vote against or in favor of those things in a subcommittee, those votes don't usually get published anywhere. So something like this doesn't really make media. I would be willing to bet or guess the vast majority of you did not know that this piece of legislation was ever even a consideration in the Tennessee General Assembly. Yes? No? That's right. All right, we are going to head back over to our presentation. That's the Tennessee General Assembly website. There's a lot of things that you can see there. Obviously, it is a wealth of knowledge. It's really important to know what specifically you are voting for, and it's also important to remember that the reason that elected officials don't always have easy answers on the things that they vote for are because they are trying to re-seek a job. You are directly making sure that they get their paycheck. Also, for those of you who are interested in knowing, the part-time legislature of the Tennessee General Assembly makes, on average, on paper, about $48,000 a year. They are in session from January to May 1st. That is more than a lot of people on this campus, full-time salary, make in a year. So when you are putting out your vote to go vote for somebody down ballot, keep in mind that the tax dollars that you pay as a student, as an employee somewhere in this state, or as a homeowner in this state, that is also paying for their $48,000 a year for their 6 months of work. So, this is similar to the...
January through April is only 4 months.
Yes. Sometimes they go all the way into May 1st, but it's very, very rare. So, there you have. Anyway, so I guess 5. But this is an updated version of this flyer that you see over here blown up by Dr. Evans. So, you can see the information. This is guides.vote. This is a great organization. They actually collect all of the information that you could possibly want to know about how different parties vote on different topics. So you can see here, once again, right up at the top where we always seem to find it, abortion. So you can see what they specifically voted for between the 2 leading parties in Congress. This is a really helpful representation of, if you don't have the time, if you want to know maybe not what our General Assembly is voting on, but maybe what Marsha Blackburn is voting on, maybe what Bill Hagerty is voting on. These are the resources that you will use to find that information. Does anybody have questions about anything that we have covered so far? Let's just be silent. Okay. Alrighty. So now you know what they vote for. You can use programs like Guides.vote, or you can use the Tennessee General Assembly website to find out information about what they're voting for. Does anybody know what causes an elected official to vote in favor of a piece of legislation or against? Yeah, what's up, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm looking at the demonstration votes. I kind of were going with this. Yeah, I mean, donations to their campaigns from certain interested groups.
Wonderful. Yes, so as I hope all of you know, there's a federal requirement for organizations to list how much money they have donated to a particular candidate per election finance campaign law. The controversy around that is that sometimes that is not easy to find. Luckily, there are organizations like Open Secrets that make it a little bit easier. It is a federal regulation. This is one of the only websites that actually has it compiled. For what reason? It's hard to say. This is a nonpartisan, independent, and nonprofit organization that does collect all of this information. It is public information. You are paying these people to represent you at Congress. You pay in federal tax dollars every year. So, we are going to go ahead and look at members of Congress. Who would we like to look up? Now this one can actually be interesting. We did this on Saturday when I was practicing before homecoming, and it was an eye-opening endeavor. Anybody have a particular person that they love or strongly don't love that we would like to look up?
John Rose.
John Rose? All right. Alrighty. There he is. So he is involved in the agriculture and financial services sectors. And as you can see here, his top industry comes from the retirement community. His top contributor is also Next Generation Underwriters. Does anybody know what that is? So this is a company. This is a company that is likely using a name. Shocking, most people. This is a company that is using a name to essentially cover their tracks. So an individual who is the CEO of a company can write off something on behalf of an organization because after the passage of a notorious piece of SCOTUS law, so to speak, campaign funds are considered valid if they are from organizations, because organizations are now considered people. They are protected by free speech. They are protected by campaign finance laws. And it's interesting. I encourage you, we don't have time to do it today, but I encourage you to look up the Citizens United case involving this. So as you can see, there is a lot of information on this page as well. A lot of money has been raised on behalf of John Rose. He, honestly, in the grand scheme of the people that we looked at on Saturday, not the worst. Is there anybody else that you have a strong, passionate, in either direction opinion of? Yes. Okay. All right. Hey. Nope. I'm not typing. Oh, this was happening yesterday. Okay. Is he actually in here? Yeah, he is in here. It's Andy. All right. His only sector that he currently has listed is financial services. He's an economist, correct? Alrighty. So as we can see, the House Freedom Fund and Middle Tennessee State University. Thank you for letting us get that one on video. So Middle Tennessee State University is responsible for $11,376 of campaign finances for Andy Ogles.
MTSU donates to political campaigns?
Allegedly, according to the information given here. However, you will notice it does say individuals, not political action campaigns. What's up, Ethan?
Yeah, I was gonna note that it's like individuals, so it could be like professors or faculty members who are just doing that of their own volition, not necessarily. Yeah. If it was MTSU itself, it would be under the PACs list.
Correct. He has a pretty sizable donation from the retired community. For a lot of the retired community, that essentially means somebody who's set up and I will always vote and send money like monthly to their campaign. That's usually how that tends to work. It's a great thing to set it and forget it, you know? So, anybody else? Do we have anybody from the other parties that we want to look up, maybe?
Justin Jones.
Oops.
Justin Jones.
Justin Jones. This only works for federal, unfortunately.
Okay, gotcha.
Open Secrets has not developed quite that far yet. We heard Bernie. Bernie. Look at him. Okay. 2006. There he is. So he's involved in budget, energy and natural resources, environment and public works, health, education, labor, and pensions. He's the chairman of that one. And he is in charge of Veterans Affairs. His largest contributor is Google. Google, Apple, Amazon, Kaiser Permanente, and the U.S. Postal Service. So, once again, keep in mind what kind of organizations these are. Keep in mind, I know that I receive tweet updates from this one specifically. There are a lot of conversations that are often had about the fight for 15, the fight to have equal representation for all people across different workforces, and human rights violations that are made by large organizations such as these. And unfortunately, these are the same people who are donating to the Bernie Sanders campaign. It's an uncomfortable truth. It's hard to recognize. Sometimes finding out this information is not wonderful. All right, last but not least, we'll look up the first woman senator from the state of Tennessee. Here is Miss Marsha Blackburn, a fellow pageant woman. She was involved in commerce, science, and transportation, finance, judiciary, and veterans affairs. You can see here she has a really sizable amount of donation, over $4 million from the Republican Conservative Fund, and also her top contributor is AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. She's also second runner-up Tractor Supply. A Tennessean through and through. Also FedEx Corp makes sense because of Memphis. She's also involved in HCA, so she does have her hands to a degree over in the healthcare industry. Now, I also feel like I heard did somebody say AOC? Did I make that up?
No. Let's do it.
Yeah, do it.
We can look. Hers is Google too. I spend time on here, just doing stuff. Okay, so she has also a pretty sizable donation, actually, from the retirement community, and Google is, once again, hers as well. The New York City Department of Education is her second largest donor, and then Apple, Meta, and the U.S. government. Sometimes when you don't spend enough money on your own financials, you're entitled to a certain amount that will get paid back into your fund. That appears to be the case here, but you'll notice none of those are political action. So, only a certain amount of that was actually done by a higher-up person, meaning all of those are individual donations. The only political action campaign that you can see here is from human rights as an industry. So it's hard to say which one that was because it was not one of her top contributors. But you can see, we're just going to keep using AOC for this one. As you can see, there are statistics regarding which individuals are responsible for voting for these people or for donating money for these people. You can see here, small individual contributions make up 68.5% of her campaign donations. That information is also a little bit misleading for a number of reasons, but if you ever get one of those texts that help save democracy today in 2024 by donating $24.20, there's a reason that works, and that actually brings down the overall average total of individual donor amounts that get donated to each individual. So, here you can see this important disclaimer down here. The organizations themselves did not donate. Rather, the money came from the organization's PAC, their individual members or employees or owners, and those individuals' immediate families. So there are a lot of other disclosures that happen when talking about donations for campaigns. Is there anything that anybody has a specific question about? Because I know this is a little bit information overload. It is important though, because once again, and we'll maybe go to another person. We can go back to Marsha if we must. Well, okay, maybe not that far. Let's just choose somebody fun. Here we go. We've looked at a couple of Republicans. We'll look at Democrat. So we've got Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader. In his single largest top contributor, as you will notice, is actually the same group as Marsha Blackburn. That is AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. So, it's important to follow the money with a lot of these campaigns because, unfortunately, even if they are elected to represent you, and if they are elected to legislate on your behalf, they are more likely going to change that ideology a little bit based on what campaigns donate to them. That's not new. It's not ever really been new. That has been something that has been the case since the very get-go, once we started campaign finance law. So as you can see, for example, Apollo Global Management, a global management campaign that apparently donated $69,000. Yes?
So, we hear bandied about a great deal, and in fact, a week from today, we're going to be hearing a discussion about gun issues in the state of Tennessee, and we hear all the time about, oh, so-and-so is a big receiver of funds from the National Rifle Association.
Yes.
If you wanted to track who gets big money from a particular organization that you're interested in, where those funds are flowing, how would you track that?
So you can actually go up on this top bar here, you can see industries and interest groups or lobbying. We'll look at PACs first. So you can find information about that, but you can actually look up, let's see. Oh, I can't spell. Don't look. I really can't spell. Don't look. Are they gonna come up? In theory, the Wi-Fi's being a little slow. Okay, so we'll go to lobbying. Foreign lobby watch, interesting. Anyway, okay. So usually there is a way to do it on here. For whatever reason, it did not pull anything up. Oh boy. Sorry, just saw 2 trillion and wanted to highlight that. So normally you can find out that information on the website. I'm not exactly
Can you
sure
just look
why
up
it's
National
not.
Rifle Association when they give us a nice list of people to whom they donate?
I did. It
I
didn't
think
work.
you add an extra F.
Oh, y'all. I told you I couldn't spell. Hold on. Hold on. Okay. I'm on the wrong page. Okay. I'm getting there, I promise. Alright. Here we go. Okay. Spell rifle for me. Oh! There it is misspelled.
I think it's just an F.
Oh,
It is.
thank you. Well, what's that? L-E? Perfect. L-E.
Alright.
Disclaimer, I am dyslexic, so this is not just me being goofy. Yeah, for whatever reason, it's kind of looking like it's not able to be found. Yes.
What I found was helpful for me on this website was using the top search bar, because it'll kind of do like a full, yeah.
How about just NRA?
Yeah, NRA, or National Rifle Association
Okay.
profile, yeah.
Slay, thank you. Thank you, Ethan. Okay, so, they rank 383rd out of 8,786 lobbying organizations in 2024. Last year, they donated over $2 million to people in Congress. Outside spending, 82 out of 150. Their top recipients, oh, hold on, let's see. So this looks interesting. Okay. For just the sake of pointing it out, there is a graph down at the bottom here. Whoa. There is a graph down at the bottom here. You'll notice they do seem to, for whatever reason, exclusively donate funds to the Republican ticket. Which Democrats do own guns. But for whatever reason, the NRA is not showing that they donate. So for outside groups, you can see the recipients of the funds, outside groups and candidates. Candidates make up 36.95% of the money that they move around federally, and then outside groups. Now, what exactly does that mean? It's kind of intentionally vague. It does make up almost 50% of the money that they spend, which means that it's not directly going to an individual, but it can in a roundabout way. So there are finance laws that require you to only donate a certain amount every year for a federal election. And in terms of the way that this is worded, if they donate it to a lobbyist or if they're paying a lobbyist, that lobbyist can also make an individual donation, but they cannot do it on behalf of the NRA. They have to do it as an individual donator. It actually appears that it has gone down over time, which is nice, but also this is claiming that $500 has been done. So, there's that. In the Senate, it's much worse. Now there was a pretty significant decline. So on lobbying alone, this year, it is currently September, they have spent almost $1 million on just this election cycle. It's honestly less than I anticipated, quite a significant amount less than I anticipated. But you can also see this, they do disclose donors legally, they have to. Independent expenditures and communication costs are seemingly what they are responsible for. Electioneering communications are zero. In my opinion, and I am speaking as myself and not a representative of the university or any organization, that just doesn't sound true. We know that the NRA does in fact have a lot of hands in different pots in this election cycle. They always seem to. And this information down here under independent expenditures also tells a bit. So for Republicans, they have 59.36% of their funds, and the only other that is significant is against Democrats. So races that are not specifically pro-Republican, but are specifically anti-Democrat, which, you know, one coin, two sides. That is where you can find that information. 9.19%. So 0.19% goes toward pro-2A Democrats. Not a huge number, but there you go. And absolutely 0% goes against Republicans. So any campaign that is specifically against Republicans, 0%, $0. So there you have that. It is a little surprising that, first, that I misspelled rifle 4 times, but second, that the amount is so low. If we look at different cycles, we might be able to see something a little different. So if we look in 2020, for example, that money looks a little bit different. So for lobbying, that was $3 million in 2019, just over $2 million in 2020. If we go all the way back to 2016, which is where I kind of anticipate it will be bigger. Bigger. So actually, all the way back in 2015, which does make sense because they were amping up for the 2016 election, they spent $3.5 million, and then outside spending was $54 million.
I was going to say, I've been hearing through the news that I don't know anything about National Rifle Association, and some of y'all may be members who could inform better, but I've heard that Wayne LaPierre bankrupted the NRA, so maybe that's why they just don't have as much money.
It certainly could be if we look like even further and further back. Now granted, you'll see this only goes far back as 2012. That is when Open Secrets was created. But they have had large changes in the amount of money that they have donated over the years, and that does seem to mimic the change in ideological shift that has happened between the parties. The split has grown wider. The chasm has grown deeper. So if you look at different years, these are every 2 years, it appears. And that also makes sense because elections happen every 2 years. Actually, elections happen every year in the state of Tennessee, but every 2 years for Congress. So here, kind of similar leading into 2014, but the overall surprise of it all is that it has not reached as high as you would expect. $158 million in outside spending, that is a lot. $69 million in lobbying, again, a lot. $24 million in contributions, that's a lot. You'll see individuals here. The highest is the NRA Victory Fund. I am almost willing to bet that that is how they are coming up so few. Let's see. No results found. No point. Okay. Well, I tried. Anyway, any questions about Open Secrets? Open Secrets is like a fountain of knowledge, of information that you can find. And as you can tell, there are candidates that you would not necessarily expect to have certain kinds of donors. You know, anybody else that somebody's just itching to find out more about? Yes?
Bill Haggerty.
William Haggerty. Appropriations, banking, housing, urban affairs, foreign relations, rules and administration. Blackstone Group, if any of you know what Blackstone is, one of the most rich organizations in the world, actually. Blackstone Group is one of the largest donors. State of Tennessee, employees of State of Tennessee, not actual political action campaigns through the State of Tennessee. HCA Incorporated, that is healthcare. Rogers Group Investments, and Apollo Global Management. So a handful of global management, vague management companies, healthcare, the State of Tennessee, and billionaires. Yes?
Blackstone's the one that's like buying up like housing, right?
Yep.
Like private housing.
Correct. Yes. Blackstone is responsible for buying housing. What's up?
Because isn't there like a BlackRock and a Blackstone company?
BlackRock's military, I think.
Yeah,
right?
BlackRock.
Oh,
Private
okay.
military, yeah.
Yes.
That's what I was thinking at first as well.
Yes. But that's the information that you have about Bill Haggerty. Now, something that it is important to note, in some ways, so in the state of Tennessee, it should not be a surprise to anybody, some of the donors listed for our senators, because we are a red state. But something that is important to note is that very seldom do our senators vote positively on healthcare reform, despite the fact that one of their largest donors, coming from individuals and from political action campaigns, is HCA, which is a healthcare organization. So, once again, when you go to the polls in November and you say, I want to vote for this person, consider, are they voting in favor of Tennesseans, where there is a opioid epidemic currently happening and has been happening since 2012? Or are they voting in the interests of HCA Incorporation? So, kind of gloomy, and I'm sorry. We will head right back over to here, and I'm almost done. So, that's why they vote that way. So why vote down ballot? There are a number of reasons that you should vote down ballot, if the reasons that I gave you just then weren't an obvious glaring result of them. A lot of reasons to vote down ballot are not only because the things that are on the rest of the ballot are important. First, you're going to be showing up, hopefully, and I know that you will be showing up at the Rutherford County Election Commission. You will hopefully be voting early and often. But another reason is, if you're already going to be there voting and being aware of what is on the rest of that ballot is important. Tennessee in 2022 ranked 49th out of 50th for voter registration and 50th, dead last, for voter participation, which is abysmal. And as the volunteer state, we should be volunteering to show up. But more importantly than why we should actually go there, that is the logical reason, raise your hand if you have something that is important to you. Something along the lines of access to recreational marijuana, access to abortion, access to anything, essentially. Access to something that you do not currently have access to. Restriction to prison labor. Any of those things can actually be on a ballot by voting down ballot, and here's why. So, the U.S. Constitution can actually be amended in two separate ways. Separate of what Congress is capable of doing with a 2/3 vote and then a ratification through the states, through state legislatures to approve that amendment, you do have the alternative option of 2/3 of state legislatures, so the people that we vote for in the state of Tennessee, passing a piece of legislation. And if they make up that 2/3 number, that piece of legislation can become an omnibus bill, which will then be qualifying to pass as a constitutional amendment. So if we have enough states that are trying to pass recreational marijuana, that can eventually become accessible via constitutional amendment. if we have states that are enshrining the right to a medical abortion or to reproductive freedom in their state constitution, that can eventually become a constitutional amendment. It's part of the reason that there are several states that are trying to prevent that vote from being on their ballot. You have the ability of making sure that what you actually care about can come to fruition. And if you don't have faith in Congress, that's okay. You should still go out and vote anyway, because there is hope. And for any of you who are over the age of 18, and in some cases 25, you are actually eligible to run for those offices in the state of Tennessee, because the minimum age to run in the House is 18 and the minimum age in the Senate is 25. So, any questions whatsoever? Cool. If anybody does decide that they have questions later on, there's my information. I'm up into 26. These are also the children's books that we were mentioning earlier. That last one down here on the bottom, that is the one that Dean Vile and I are writing together. I'm illustrating a copy of his Declaration of Independence. Encyclopedia. The man has written so many books. I encourage you to come read them. I have about 15 of them in my office currently for reference. If anybody has questions about that whatsoever, or anything that we talked about today, or anything in the bio that Dr. Evans read earlier, I would love to give answers. Otherwise, I know we are almost done on time. So I hope that this was informational, and I hope that some of the information can be used when you are deciding to vote for it. Thank you.